We're all back together on the Football Pod. It's episode 24 this week. And if I could describe this weekend, it would be the most stereotypical weekend for Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran this week. Paddy Andrews was off in the sun on a stag playing golf. Andy Moran got knocked out of the club championship on Friday and then was on the TV on Sunday as the Leitrim manager at the Leitrim County final. So I don't know where to start here, lads. There's a lot of news to get through here. Let's start with Paddy. How are you doing, Pat?
Not too bad now. I would have loved if we recorded this pod before I went away on the stag as opposed to late on the Monday night now. But needs must. I've had a long day, rested up and doing a little bit of work today. Got home late last night from Spain. So, yeah, a nice couple of days away in the sun. Didn't catch up with the Leitrim County final yesterday, but seen it on Twitter today that I missed an absolute cracker by all accounts.
You 100% did. There's definitely a bit of sun over there in Spain this week. You've got a nice colour.
It was, yeah. It was about 25, 26 degrees. It was top class for mid-October, yeah. So we were blessed. Yeah, it was deadly. Great time and a good crowd.
I was trying to get a bit of insight on Instagram over the weekend, but I think Niall Scully was the only man giving a few bits away. There was nothing much coming out.
He was told not to, but maybe he was a little bit looser now by Friday.
No. Was that golf trip on your stag?
Yeah.
We'd a bit of golf Friday and then we're out on a boat on Saturday, yeah. Sunday was. We're trying to find the Leitrim match somewhere on the Marbella Strip and we just couldn't get it. I was looking for Andy Moran. I was Googling Andy Moran in Marbella and nothing would come up for me.
Paddy, I went up to his club championship match on Friday. I was up in Ahamore and there was something beautiful about it. It was Friday night lights. It was a country club in Ahamore. You had to park the car up by the church, walk up in the darkness. I actually asked the fellow where the pitch was and he started laughing at me. Up on the left, went into the pitch. It was cold, it was frosty, it was raining.
Magic.
Balladream were unlucky. They drew. They should have got through. I'll let Andy talk about it in a second. But when I looked at Andy Moore in the warm-up, socks up, I said, that's a championship haircut. Until I realised it was a TV. It was a TV haircut. He was getting it all done for TG Carr on the Sunday.
I don't doubt that. I have no doubt on that.
Shawnee McDermott look after you again?
Oh, always Shawnee's man, yeah. But they like what I love about Paddy Andrews now, coming home from a 2-3 day stag, we'll call it a 3-day, and he's to lead this interview.
Tommy, I got your email through earlier on Rory.
First line, Paddy to take the lead here. That's because we've got Rory Gallagher coming on the pod this week, lads. A man that Paddy Andrews has a lot of history with. As I said on 2 weeks ago when I said we got Rory, he started laughing when I said that Paddy Andrews was the co-host. So
let Rory off on his own. Rory will talk. He'll keep going for a solid hour here. We won't have to say anything, lads. Trust me.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Andy, it was a busy weekend in your household. Hard luck Friday night.
Yeah, Tommy, it was disappointing actually. Jeez, I can't stop thinking about it since. If I'm being honest with you, it's just been one of those ones. They don't come around too often, chances like that. But yeah, we're first time we've ever got knocked out of the club championship, drawn again, which is unusual. But it was the previous games that kind of did us. We did quite well against Westport for long periods, and then the last couple of minutes we let it run away from us, and then we played Ball in the second round. Game we were well up in, and then Ball nearly caught us then at the end. So it was them two games that did the damage. Castlebar were more consistent throughout the three games, and that game on Friday night was always going to be tight. Just the two teams where they're at. Both have older players like myself, and then real young, exciting players coming through as well. So it was one of those games where both teams were coming in the right, nice time. And Castlebar have a huge chance now. They're on the right side the draw, and they've a good chance.
Yeah, no, it was really enjoyable evening. It fed into the game on Sunday then that we saw in the Leitrim County final. Two teams at a similar level going at it. Championship football, it matters. You can't beat it. And we saw that in Leitrim at the weekend. You must have been impressed.
That was great.
What a story. Ballinamores' first title in 30 years.
Yeah, which is amazing. But away from the players and the quality, it was just a great game, to be honest with you. We looked around after about 10 or 11 minutes. We said, this is... Joe, you didn't think it could keep going at the pace it went on, but it did. Mo looked like they were home and host with about 10, 12 minutes to go. It looked like they were controlling the game. And then Ballinamore bring on two or three real lively players. And they just kind of ran it out the gate. And McGovern and these guys came good in near the end, you know.
Paddy, I don't know if you obviously didn't see the game, but I don't know if you saw the message I just threw into our WhatsApp group there of the Brains Trust. The TG Car cameras caught them again. You can see that's Barry McWeeny beside you, isn't it? Mike Solon, Jenny on the left. And who's the two boys in front of you? Because there's a brilliant sports file photo that I've thrown up now on the Football Pod Instagram page. Trying to guess the caption, what you two boys were talking about in front. Did you see that photo, no?
I have it here now. So
that's
James Clancy in front of us. And then that's John.
Oh, that's Clancy in front of you. I was wondering who that was.
Yeah,
okay.
So Clancy and John McManus actually beside him. So John would be the sponsor on the back of the jersey.
Okay.
So he'd be, himself and Clancy would be club mates to be Mallory Hamilton men. So they know each other well. So that's who them guys are, yeah. So, but Jenny's the real brains there, as we found out over the last couple of weeks in the pod.
We know that.
Yeah. So, it was brilliant. It was good to catch up with the lads. The lads know them well. They know the older guys really well, the likes of Daniel Beck and Wayne McKeown and these guys, fellas who've kind of drifted away from the panel, but some of them could be good enough still to play it,
Yeah, I'd say there was a real excitement then around the place, especially when Ballinamore did it, because Mohill have been thereabouts for a couple of years, and it's always nice to get a new county champion, even though I think they're the most successful club in the county. It's a long time coming, so plenty of young talents that caught the eye. Keith Byrne was one, Paddy. We'll have to send you on the highlights. He kicked a couple of bombs. You had Tom Pryor playing. And the match winner, Niall McGovern, scored a savage goal to win it later on. So, yeah, real excitement. Another thing that's heated up this week, lads, is Special Congress. And by the time we get into episode 25 next week, we will know what next year's championship is going to look like. I'll be honest, we've done an awful lot of pieces and off the ball over the last 3 weeks. We have a playlist there in our YouTube account. You can listen to about 8 hours of debates and arguments and bits of insight into Special Congress and the three proposals, I suppose, that are in front of us at the minute. And I'm a little worried at the minute, to be honest. I don't know what's going to happen, but just the word that we're getting from, we've had two members of the Ulster Council. We've had Brian McAvoy from the Ulster Council on, and you heard that piece, and we've had Michael Reynolds on from Leinster GA as well. Two very well-spoken men who are very, 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 very set in what they believe, and that is that the provincial championships cannot be taken away. That link cannot be broken from the All-Ireland Championship. So, I don't know, you can listen to those pieces if you want and make up your own minds, but that Michael Reynolds piece got a lot of reaction today. Tom Parsons came out and was not happy with a bit of it too. So
I've seen some of the stuff on Twitter from some pretty high-profile players and ex-players who were definitely challenging the tone and the message of what was delivered to you guys this morning. It's worrying. Yeah, it absolutely is. You kind of see the reaction over the last couple of weeks and the surveys the GPA have done. And Conor O'Donoghue was on for the task force speaking about the monetary gains that this would generate for the counties and for the championship.
Actually, you were on your Stags, so you might have missed this. The GA then came back and they released their own figures, and they kind of said, look, Conor's figures are wrong. But the GA's figures that they put out, which seem quite pessimistic, show that there's next to no difference. Regardless of what change you make, it's pretty much the same money-wise. So what's there to lose? Like, do you know whether Conor's projections are quite ambitious when he actually said they weren't? They were actually quite conservative. Or the GA's ultra-conservative, one is that we don't lose money. Look, that's why money doesn't matter this week. It's not about money. It's... Sorry, Paddy, I could have crossed you there. I just thought you might have missed that.
That was it. Like it seemed like everything was trucking along, that this was going to go ahead. And then, like say, as much as the players had probably got together and the GPA have rounded up the troops, it's pretty clear that the county boards and the county councils have gone and done that as well themselves, because pretty much day on day, from Ulster, from Connacht, from Leinster, these guys are coming out and now saying, well, look, we don't really support that. So
some county chairman like Michael Dydon came out last Thursday and was exceptionally good in the sense that he canvassed the players. Players said what they wanted. He canvassed the management, Mahan and O'Shea and the lads said what they wanted. Then went to the county board, and Offaly and Westmeath and a number of counties like that, they're all on the same page, which is great, which is what you probably want in a lot of counties. So look, whatever way it goes next week, we'll see what happens. But I hope to God, I'll struggle to talk about structure for a long time, but I hope this isn't the end of it if it ends.
You'd like to think that the players here, the guys who are going to go out there doing it, that their say and the sheer scale of how much of them have supported Proposal B is taken into account in some way or form.
Yeah.
Because at the minute, as we get closer and closer to the gig on Saturday, it's probably looking a little bit more unlikely than it was this time 7 days ago. So that'll be disappointing. I think it'll be disappointing for the players, it's disappointing for the supporters, disappointing for us in the media.
Yeah.
To cover the championship and covering good competitive games. Look, we'll know. But this time next week, like I say, episode 25, we'll have our ducks in a row and we'll know what's happened. But it's going to be an interesting couple of days and see who's out canvassing over the next couple of days to try and swing this one way or the other.
But the big thing, I think, and I think with all the debates, if it's Brexit, COVID, whatever, Trump, all this sort of stuff, but what's literally happened, lads, in every debate you have, there's no respect for the other point of view. And I think when you start there and you start there, there's no middle ground. And at the minute, that's where I feel we're at. We're at a point where it has to be proposal B or it has to be this. Like I said last week, and we said on the pod, the Ulster Championship is an absolute amazing competition. So however we get change, that has to be... how would you say it? That has to be rewarded that it's such a good competition. It can't be just left as a pre-season tournament. Okay, so something has to change. I don't think it has to be a big change from what Proposal B is saying, but it has to be saying if you win the Ulster Championship, you get into the quarterfinals, or something needs to be done there. And then it just becomes that we're working together and there's compromise set, and you go from there. But at the minute, it's the provincial councils have their backs to the wall. And everyone else is just keep pushing them. And that's just going to make them put their backs to the wall even more.
You know what, Andy? It's because it's being debated out on Twitter. That platform itself, there's so much hostility. Like that Leinster Council chairman comes on today and is pretty much ridiculed by ex-GAA players, pretty high-profile players all over Twitter today. And it's, okay, I might not agree with the points he's making, but you have to have empathy and understand where these guys are coming from. It cannot just be that guy's a dinosaur. Why'd you have him on? How does he make it?
It was a very well reasoned debate, I felt, on air. I know both sides weren't agreeing with each other, but they were getting their points across. And I actually had a half-hour conversation with Michael off air. He referenced it himself, and both of us are coming from different sides. But the one thing I think has been very positive in the last few weeks is that it's been spoken about at length. I do think that's a positive,
But Congress, Tommy, Congress is not the place to do this. That's the biggest problem here, is Congress isn't the place to do. Like, in no well-organised business do you have to go in and say, right, we have to lobby everyone in 32 different businesses, 4 different businesses. They're all sub-businesses within the provincial. So and then you put Congress and then you have to put it all together. Like, come on. Like the most successful model in the last couple of years is the Dublin model. Costello's over, whatever. I don't even understand really what he does, but presumably works something similar to a CEO within the company. And someone needs to make a bloody decision. And it's not, everyone has an opinion, but like somebody needs to make a call, and it can't be just votes. If we keep doing stuff like that,
I know it
becomes too diluted.
There's vested, sorry, Paddy, but there's vested interest in there everywhere.
Oh, 100%.
That's the thing.
I've been at Congress before a couple of times.
Have you?
Many moons ago, we used to work at it. I did my work experience there in DC. Stop!
Jeez, I didn't realise that.
Yeah. I won't be going this Saturday.
I got asked. I was asked to work at it, but I'm away. I can't make it. Lads, I'm really excited. We've got Rory Gallagher coming up next in the pod, on the football pod with Paddy and Andy. We're probably going to ask him about special Congress at some stage, but I'm not going to make any secret about it. We're going to start off from the start when we get Rory in. And that's not the fact that he played as a cornerback for Fermanagh as a minor when he was 14 years old. No, it's the fact that he coached Paddy Andrews when Paddy Andrews was 14 years old. So stay tuned. And he was a cornerback. So Rory Gallagher is the reason Paddy Andrews was a cornerback. I don't believe that.
Rory never played me in the backs, to be fair to him. It was... Where did I start? DCU.
It was Niall Moyna. It was Niall Moyna put you 6, wasn't it?
Niall Moyna and Declan Brennan, back in... No, we were a pretty stacked freshers team. We brought pretty much the whole international rules team to play freshers football. So this was the Celtic Tiger days. We were loving it at the time. So I ended up just being centre-back, which is... Look, when you have a team of basically the international rules team, You can play centre back pretty easily. It's a different kettle of fish when you start being put back into the full back line and Sigerson Cup and things like that as well. So it was this year where it started. Rory, to be fair, always played him in the forwards. He knew what I was about. So yeah, very special times for me and special times for our club, St. Bridget's, when Rory was down there.
Yeah, it's class.
Yeah,
looking forward to getting into it. So hit subscribe and stay with us for the next couple of seconds. We're going to be back with you with Rory Gallagher. All right, you're very welcome back to episode 24 of the Football Pod. Andy Moran's with me, Paddy Andrews with me, and I'm really happy to welcome the Derry boss, Rory Gallagher, to the show. Rory, how are you doing?
Doing good, lads. How's it going?
Brilliant, Rory. And we were just telling the listeners before we kicked into this interview here that yourself and Paddy Andrews go way back, but you didn't get invited to the stag this weekend.
No, we go way back, and when I moved to Dublin in 2002, and he was somebody I connected with very early, even though I think Paddy was only 14, but he was a special talent then, and he ended up having a very fruitful career out of it.
That's it, Paddy, is it?
Well, that's pretty much sounds about right. Yeah, he was. We had a pretty good underage team with Bridget's, our club at the time. We'd won the All Ireland Failure, which is under 14 Division 1, and we won the under 15 championship in 2002, and then Rory came down. It was just a really special time in the club. Rory came in as the coach and development officer for us, and straight away would have had a massive impact with our particular team. We were probably the standout juvenile team, but also in the schools and stuff as well. And just connected, I suppose. We got on pretty well, Rory.
Yeah.
In a couple of years there together, but it was a really special time for our club as a whole, because I think a lot of you guys will see it. The senior team started performing and competing to win championships as well, whereas Bridget's probably hadn't really done that before. That they'd lost the final in 1999, they lost in 2001. There was a brilliant Nafina team there with Kieran McGeaney and Jason Short, Desi Farland. These guys, a really spectacular team, and Bridget's hadn't got over the line. And then ultimately Rory and his cousin Raimi came in, and Jerry McAtee was the coach who you'd know, Tommy, and we just won the championship and won the Leinster Club Championship in 2003. And that was just when the senior team was going really well. That just feeds down to everyone else in the club. And it was the Celtic Tiger at the time as well. There was lots of good stuff going on around.
Carnivals. Was he ever at a carnival?
Rory had to drag me out of a few carnivals now from matches in Ireland as well. But we got there in the end. But yeah, a massive influence on me for those 4 or 5 years. And then got to play, obviously, on the senior team. And 2006, I think I made my debut, and 2007. 2008, we actually lost. We drew a game with Ballymun and got knocked out of the championship. Exactly like Andy, you were saying. This weekend, it was a group stage, and we drew with Ballymun, and we were knocked out. And then, Rory, you were gone the following year, I think, wasn't it? You were up to Galls in 2000.
Yeah, you forgot I missed a penalty in that game that didn't
happen. No, I remember that. I just didn't want to say it.
Remember that, yeah. So it is. And that was kind of the coming of Philly McMahon and those lads, that ended up being the mainstay of that team,
What was that?
08.
08,
or maybe,
okay.
Yeah, 08, yeah.
08, yeah.
Come here, Rory. The geezer, there's stories about geezer and the McNulty's going into Nafina and how those moves were kind of negotiated in the back corners of Coppers back then in 2000, 2001. Yeah. How did your move come about to Bridget's? I believe it was a coaching position, was it?
Yeah, well, I was finishing, as we were speaking about, we were at Sligo IT, and we just won a Sigerson, which was absolutely massive at the time. Sligo hadn't won it, Tommy, and you're finishing at college and you're wondering what you're going to do and that sort of thing. And I was very friendly with young Sean Quinn from Fermanagh, Me and Sean had played 3 years county minors, and Sean had spent a lot of his, I suppose, college time in Dublin, and he ended up playing with Bridget, where he's just joined Bridget in 2002, and he said, "Come on down here, and sure we'll win a Dublin championship, like that." Bridget has never won one, and I suppose I thought about it and said we go down, and he must have negotiated with the club that there were actually, it was a time, Paddy was saying there rightly that they won an All Ireland failure, but at the same time Castleknock were coming. And Castleknock were in the area, and I suppose Bridges wanted to compete for them for the players. So they were going to develop a full-time coach, So Sean didn't really thank me for it when I ended up pushing him out of the team. He never made the team then. So he didn't. No. And he wasn't too happy with it. He wasn't, because myself and Raymond slotted into the forward line, and Sean ended up on the bench. But that's how it came about, And I suppose when word leaked, Tommy, that you were going to Dublin, that a few other clubs came in and that sort of thing. But it is a decision I never regret. I wanted to go to a club that to make a difference. Bridges had never won a championship, which is hard to believe given the pedigree at the time. And like as Paddy says, you know, it was a time, it was like a carnival atmosphere the whole time, with Dublin sort of coming good, the Celtic Tiger, but Bridges just was like an electric period, and it was very unique, you know, the size of the club. We won the championship, and I was starting to realise, because I was working at the club, I knew more people in the club. I still would know more people in the club than Paddy, I'd say. You know,
but Paddy hasn't been back at Bridges training in about 2 months. He's been golfing every weekend.
I was down. My niece
got a phantom back injury, I heard. You know, but you know, when I'd be around the club, because you know all the kids in the schools and the parents, boys would be going to be, how do you know them? How do you know them? So it was great. You know, it was a period I really, really enjoyed.
Rory, I must send on this photo to you, because I went looking through Sports File yesterday, and I swear to God, you must have the greatest collection of GA jerseys from your career. Jerseys you played in, never mind swapping jerseys. There's a wonderful photo of you, and I think it's the final whistle after Bridges won the club championship, and you have a couple of Bridges club men or maybe supporters over your shoulders, and I suppose you're crying, and it just shows how much it meant to you. You know, like it's funny, you're only in the club maybe a year or two.
I was only in the club. I went down in June 2002, and we played the championship that year. We could beat Kimacud, and I don't mind saying I pushed hard to get Jerry McEntee in as manager. Jerry was coaching in the club, and he never really managed the senior team, and I became very close to him, and still would be, you know. And it was just brilliant, you know. I really enjoyed it. Became very friendly with all the lads. There was Leitrim lads there. Declan, when I say Leitrim, Declan and Ken Darcy, who'd lived all their life in Dublin. Jason Ward, you know. It was a crazy time, but no, that final was brilliant, because we produced an unbelievable display as well against Kimacud. I think we scored 17 points, and it was really, really fulfilling period.
Would I be right in saying when you dragged in Jerry McEntee as coach there, and you're coming as manager, and you're coming in as a coaching officer, and Paddy Andrews was influenced by you at that age as well? I read a piece by Kieran Shannon maybe about a decade ago, and it was talking about your origins as a coach. That happened when you were quite young, I believe. You were overage for a minor team or something in and around Fermanagh. Was it in a club, and you kind of started getting involved in the coaching sense? Like, did you always know that you had that, I suppose, way of thinking about the game?
I didn't always know, Tommy, but you kind of maybe were over the top, taking it on. So you were.
I suppose it's a loaded question, because there's a quote from Harry Cahill that you were kind of always involved in the coaching side of things. Yeah,
probably in a small club in particular, you felt maybe you knew best whether that was right or wrong. Maybe when your father and uncle managed the team, you could tell them what to do. Probably helped as well. And definitely from early on, probably overstepped the mark. But even getting Jerry McEntee in, and God rest him, Paddy Clark is a brilliant coach as well. You know, we would have communicated with them regularly about what needed to be done. But even as we were speaking about Sligo IT, you know, Martin McHugh took over managing the team in 2001, and he would have got me to take some of the training when I was there. So I always had a massive interest in it. I hated training under coach or management where I hated the training or didn't see the value of it. So I always kind of tried to, you know, put a bit of thought into what would I like to do, and what would challenge me, you know, what would be good for the people, you know, play. Not just fun, but challenging as well. You know, the amount of times I've done drills and just got, how would I say, peed off with it, you know, that I just see totally pointless and not fruitful, you know.
How did you find this training, Paddy?
Yeah. Oh, it was brilliant, because it was all football related. It was really, you have to bear in mind, like, I was coming through the age of like 14, 15, 16 years of age, where you start moving from, you know, children's football to starting to try and push on and make it into adult football. Like, and some players make that transition a little bit earlier. I was looking to do that. I played minor with Dublin and stuff when I was 15. So I was absolutely, I wanted to be pushed on, like. And Rory came in and did that with our team, that it was flat out all football related. And it was taking the step from underage football to, okay, if you want to be a serious player now, this is your first taste of this type of training. Like, and it was totally enjoyable. You'd still be knackered coming off the pitch, but it wasn't, as Rory said, absolute garbage. We're just running up and down, laps up and down the pitch, which was back in the day. Bear in mind, this was 03, 04, 05. That was still quite prevalent in a lot of places back then. I remember being on the Dublin minor team in 2004, and we used to train at the back of St. Bridget's, our club. There's a place called the Race Course. It's actually been all developed now. There's houses and stuff there. But this was just like a basically derelict race course, and we used to spend 2 months there training. I was 15 years of age, running up and down the race course. Like you imagine being a kids team, essentially, doing that type of training. So Rory was definitely to the forefront of bringing in that football-related stuff, skill-based, high-intensity. And it was just, for me as a kid, it was a massive, massive influence on me. And I've said, Rory would know this, and I would have said this publicly loads of times about Rory. he did have a massive bearing on not just me, but a lot of players in that club over that period of time. And it was, as much as the senior team were going really, really well, it was a special time for like I say, just everyone down around Castleknock Village and down around the club there, because for a period we were the best team in Dublin. Like I'm one of the best clubs in Dublin, you know.
But Andy, first thing Rory Gallagher said when he came on, second thing he said when he came on here was that he set the legacy for you boys in IT Sligo. Rory, Andy's stories about college are legendary on this podcast. Every week he tells us about somebody he was in college with.
Yeah, they're not about me. They're
not a segment going on.
No, yeah. But like we went in after Rory, so I went in 03, 04. You were just gone. I think you'd won the Sigerson 2 years before that, and then there was a year in between. And no, but you could see it. It was the players that were there, what they thought about the Sigerson. Even the effect of Martin McHugh still left Rory afterwards. Joe, boys on about him whispering into the huddles and pretending there was someone listening to him. About Joe just creating an atmosphere and stuff like that. But what I'm very interested in is, like, you definitely had an influence with McHugh coming into IT Sligo. I'd say you had an influence with McEntee taking over Bridges. Like, did you just go early on, listen, I'm here to win. What do I need to do to win? Who do we need to get in? How did you set the base in Bridges so quickly to turn around and go, right, we need McEntee in here to win this championship?
Well, look, because it was in Sligo IT going back, it was thrown up together kind of operation at the start, and good people trying to get it going. And then I realised we were very close. We lost the Queens, the Sigerson by a point the following year, and I was very much disagreed. We were beating UCD with Cian McManus. He had 2 at one stage, and there was a cornerback or 2 getting roasted, and I couldn't believe the manager didn't make switches. So I just wasn't prepared to be there just for the sake of it. Obviously I could have played well, so we went and pushed hard to get Martin in that time, and it bore fruit, the effort and commitment. But in Bridget's, probably, when I arrived, I just felt we good players, very good players, but there probably wasn't the seriousness of it, the real commitment to each other to be the best, and it was as if maybe they almost expected to win a championship without actually grinding it out. And I would have got to know Jerry, and he would have been one of the first TV games I would remember playing the me team, and you knew how serious he was. And then as you got to know him, he was phenomenally serious. But there was himself and Sean Doyle and Shea Wade, Paddy would know them, who helped him out, and Paddy and Paddy Clark, as we said. But I just wanted to make sure that we give ourselves the best chance of winning. And it's players' career. Obviously, you can't overstep the mark, but it's not about player priority. But you can't keep playing. All you played your 35 to 6. It's not easy. You've got to make the most of every day and every opportunity. If you don't think it's going right, you've got to push to try to get somebody that can.
Yeah, I love that. I love that directly. And then, can I just ask you, what age did you finish up playing at?
I was just about to ask you that.
I honestly, I was finished when I was 28 or 9, but I finished in. I just turned 33, Andy. It was a bit different, I had the opportunity to go to Belfast to my brother had been playing for St. Gauls 2005, and I had a work opportunity to go to Belfast, which I knew it wasn't going to be long term, but to set up an office in Belfast for the company that I worked with. And I said, right, I'm going to give this a go. No one was moving to Donegal at the time. And I actually only lived in Belfast for about 4 or 5 months. So I did. I used to commute from Donegal to St. Gauls, but I loved every minute of it, So we went to St. Gauls in 2009, and we won the 9, 10 and 11 championships. But by 11, I started getting involved with Donegal, but I was massively on the wane. I hated playing the last couple of years, despite winning All-Ireland club, and thankfully I played very well in the final a bit and a decent year that year. But I was getting frustrated not being as good as I was. I was getting frustrated not having I wasn't the quickest any at the mobility that I had. It's not as if I had a lot of injuries or anything like that, but I just almost was glad to get finished up in the end. But probably it was substituted with being involved in Donegal and the whirlwind run we were on, and I actually never missed playing then. As much as I love playing, and I absolutely love my career, and I love playing, it just fitted into coaching and then into management. You've never actually had time to think that you're missing playing.
You won an All-Ireland club title in St. Gauls. When you were joining the club, was that a realistic possibility? Because I know they're one of the strongest clubs in Antrim, but was that a possibility when you were walking in there?
I thought it was, but they'd never won one. They'd been in the final in 2005. But I knew they'd really quality players, so I did, and it was an unbelievable setup, but very different than Bridges. Bridges had it all. They had all the gear, all the jerseys, all the finance. The 4G pitch. St. Gauls won on All-Ireland with no showers were broken. They were never fixed. No training pitch, no floodlights. Tracksuits thrown together. but a real, like Bridges in a different way, a real family community spirit. Like there was 32 in the panel, I think, at the time. There was 18 brothers, 2 sets of 3 and 6 sets of 2, including my own brother, Ronan. But what I will say, I won an All-Ireland club with St. Galls and I very much enjoyed it. I far more enjoyed playing with St. Bridget's and winning that championship because I was central to the community at the time, and that's a crazy word in a city like Dublin, you know, and in a massive area, but you're just so embedded in it, you know. And even I only did the coaching role for 1 year. I had to wake up and get a serious job then and stop messing about with Paddy and boys like that were a good bit younger than me. So I did. And even though I went into that, I stayed massively involved in the underage teams, and I just become ingrained in going to games every Saturday, Sunday, or midweek, and we'd always be up at the club. And you know, it was just people give out about Dublin, but they don't actually understand how special a club is, and the community spirit from people from all over. There, you've your old school dubs, you have the new dubs, the first generation, you have the country people from Cavan, from Mayo, from Donegal, from Meath, from Kerry, and the pride they have in that club's phenomenal.
Would you? I suppose just coming in there, Tommy, like that. I suppose that lead us, like, we won't get you talking about the McGorties or any of them lunatics up there. We like if you go into the Donegal side, and like I don't really care about your relationship with Jim now, I suppose, but just at the time when playing against you,
don't worry, you and Mike Sloan might go the same way.
Yeah. But just on the sideline, then obviously we were coming at the same time. And like, I suppose it's written about that Mayo team and that Donegal team that we came from nowhere. We obviously didn't. There was good players on both sides. But G on the sideline looked, even as an opposition player, you were formidable yourself and McGuinness kind of together. Like at that time, did it feel that way to you guys? Like in terms of like what you both could give on the sideline, we're always going to be a manager in your own right. At some stage, Jim was on the crest of a wave at that stage. Did you feel that way at the time?
Definitely, Andy. It got to the stage where you actually felt you were unbeatable. So you were. Now early on, it was nervous, like, you know. So it was, you're sort of feeling each other out. You're feeling the players out. But pretty early on into 2011, you know, the way we were starting to get it together, we were desperate in our first league game. But during that league, we could feel serious momentum building, and we felt we had a very simple and effective game plan. People talk about a system, and the amount of rubbish I've heard about it, it was crazy. It was Mark McHugh dropping off somebody. The five forwards dropping deep and defending. So there was not man marking. We'd man mark certain players, but it did get to the stage where we felt we were unbeatable, you know, in a lot of ways. And I'll fast forward to the Ulster final in 2013, and I always hate myself for it. Even though no matter what we'd have brought them on, and we were walking about with our heads up our backside, thinking we were unbeatable. You know, thinking a third Ulster title in a row, and Monaghan tanked us with intensity. But that period, 2011 and 12, and definitely in 12, we got massive momentum, you know. When we beat Tyrone in the Ulster semi-final, we would have felt we were as good as anything in Ireland, you know. And we even got into 2013, I do believe if we'd looked after it and prepared properly, there was a great connection between ourselves. We felt we'd every eventuality covered. But we also felt as well, I certainly felt it was a tactic that very soon teams would cop onto, and Tyrone were the one team that did, you know. They stopped kicking it down Martin Hugh's throat. The likes of yourselves, I know you weren't playing in that 2012 final, you were mad to get the ball into Killian and Michael Conroy and was it Evan inside, or who else was inside? Indevarley, the three of them, you know, Kerry were mad to get the ball into Donaghy and Gooch at the time. It played into our hands, but we felt we did feel, you know, an unbelievable kind of chemistry between us all at the time.
The feeling of being unbeatable, is that coming from beating Tyrone? Because Tyrone had been standard bearers up in Ulster. I know it was probably the end of the journey for that Tyrone team, or in and around there, but did it come from that, or did it come from your own collective training sessions together?
Beating the Tyrone was nice on the cake to give us the momentum, Tommy. It was the collective commitment, the quality of the training sessions, the relentless drive, you know, the relentless hunger. You know, whether it was a January or February night in Castlefin, there was no fancy centre of excellence for us that time. So there was, if you've seen that place, you know, we were very fortunate to get a great sandwich pizza. It was bleak. Or whether it was Letterkenny on a Saturday morning, I don't believe there's the spirit and the hunger that we trained with that anybody could compete with at the time. It was probably only going to be short-lived, given how far we pushed the players and the pushed players' body. but that was where we felt we had it. We knew we had the work done. We also knew, you know, I knew myself in the preparation we'd done on the opposition, the way we had our players, you know, geared up for each opposition. I don't doubt Jim knew that as well, but I knew in my heart that nobody else had worked harder than us. You know, it was still at a time where maybe not every county, including top counties, knew what it took. Still at a time where there mightn't be that many. You know, I'm not so sure. Kerry people could maybe ask, did they train that hard January, February, March? Not so sure. Maybe Tyrone were at a stage where they're trying to peak. So they were. I think Mayo probably were showing that hunger. Dublin were showing that hunger. Probably still had a few issues in calming down the egos. So they did. They become a lot, you know. Yeah. Maybe, Paddy, do you disagree? You know,
hold my hands up there.
You know, so we felt we were such a level-headed bunch of players, you know, and we had a really, really grounded group of players. And obviously Murphy's the figure out of that, but Carl Lacey, Neil McGee, Big Neil, the way we went about that, Ryan Bradley, and the likes of Lacey. Lacey should have got footballer. Barry, an old teammate of ours, hatcheted him in the All-Ireland semi-final, and I don't blame him for doing it, but if Lacey hadn't got injured that day, we could have got over the line. But even at that, I thought he should have got a footballer of the year 2 years in a row, which would have been a phenomenal achievement, you know.
He was sensational.
Brilliant player,
wasn't he?
Yeah. There's a lot. He was a sensational player. And I don't mind Carl hearing this. You know, I used to think the white boots, Jesus, you know, fancy solos. What's he about? But for them couple of years, Andy, you'd know him. Sure, you were at Sligo with him in Georgetown. The way he trained, he'd say very little. I mean, he just led by examples. Those crazy times where Kevin Cassidy had wanted black books to Neil boys and Lacey look and go, what is he for real? You know, that wasn't Carl's game, you know. The way he trained, the way he applied himself, the way he led, and it was phenomenal. And I'd actually there's a lot made of the Mayo game in 2012. Mayo, in my opinion, made a big mistake letting Alan Dillon play wing half forward on him. And Carl had roasted him in a league game in Ballyshannon. The two of them were going into a footballer of the year. So the two players, if I was Mayo that day, I was dreading them bringing Alan Dillon into the corner forward, which I would have done to keep Carl. There's an awful lot made of Murphy's goal. People should see the way Carl got up the field, the quality of the ball into Michael from inside the 45. It was just unbelievable, you know.
But I just remember we snuck into the Kildare game at 11 to watch it.
Yeah.
We were playing Cork, mad stuff. You would never do it now, but we went into the Kildare Donegal game just to get used to Croke Park surroundings the night before. The night Cassidy kicked the wonder point. But it was 4-4 at half time.
Yeah.
Classic.
The only time I seen someone put a man-to-man marker on Lacey.
Yeah.
It was
Brian Flanagan.
It killed you for about 45 minutes until Flanagan ran out of steam. Do you know?
Yeah.
And it was a brilliant move by McGeaney at the time. And nobody did it then after. You must have been thinking, someone is going to put a man marker on Lacey. And it never happened, you know?
It never got to, and you're right. We were struggling for scores. We could barely score. They pushed Brian Flanagan, who was a natural wing back, up on him. And we were going, Jesus, we need to get him in the game. But in a crazy way, I would actually show as a motivational. You can show it to the Leitrim boys now when you get going, Andy. The picture of Carl Lacey after that game. I know we went to extra time. It's the closest to physical exhaustion I've ever seen on a football field. And the amount of times he got double ups, turnovers, blocks. And to me, I don't know who got man of the match. He still ended up probably the man of the match, despite, as Andy says, the first 35, 40 minutes was crazy. And if Kildare regret it, they should have pushed somebody up on him when Flanagan tired again, you know?
Yeah. I was a champion player. He was just even like I lived with him in Jordanstown. Like the way, as you said, the way he looked after himself. Now he enjoyed a night out too, the same header. But the way he carried himself around the place, even around Jordanstown standards, he said it was amazing at the time.
It's amazing, and never said anything, and was quiet, but unbelievably single-minded and relentless in his drive for Donegal and his love for Donegal. And he stayed on with me that, you know, I finished managing, and more than yourself, Andy, but it's hard as a defender to stay on playing for your county when you're past your best and to try to man mark and leave yourself. And he was probably past his best physically because of his hip injuries. You know, he still would have been, you know, looked after himself. Like, it's just, and he's not the only one. Frank Midland done the same, and Neil McGee still now. Like, it shows how much Donegal meant. And I know from speaking to some of the players, he's a massive miss to their management team now, you know.
Rory, you were quite young, obviously, 32, 33 you mentioned, but like you always had been thinking about coaching and Gaelic football. And I suppose in the teams you've been involved in, I'm sure you were, as we said earlier on, coaching. But at that stage of your coaching development, what sort of an input are you having? Like, are you involved in, like, just listening to you there talking about the Alan Dillon mismatch, we'll say, are you involved in picking out the the matchups at the weekend? Are you what are you involved in the on the field coaching, or was it all encompassing? Was it everything?
It was everything, Tommy, and as probably Paddy would have said, and Andy, I wouldn't know how to take a backward step, and I certainly wasn't going to go. Myself and Jim, just in fairness, had an unbelievable connection. We bounced off each other. We would have spoke 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. You know, we'd have planned out training. Then we'd have said, right, something's going well, just you push on with that. And we just had a chemistry, and we'd have talked things out to every eventuality, you know. So it is, and it's, you know, Andy said you wanted to be a manager. I never dreamt of being a manager. I just dreamt of winning things, you know, and being part of it. And when you're from Fermanagh, nobody from Fermanagh at that point had won an Ulster title, you know. I was lucky enough, to through the Bridges career, you know, even when I was playing, being involved with underage coaching and stuff like that, and started to manage under 21 teams. That I'll have to go back there with a story with Paddy playing as well. So it is. He was crying one morning after we got beat, and I just always felt that I had something wrong.
Was that because of the match, or was it because of the morning after?
I was crying. A bit of both. There was a bit of both, you know.
I was crying this morning, Rory. Jeez.
Pardon?
I was crying this morning as well.
You was crying this morning. I don't doubt on that flight home from Marbella, you were crying for sure. But I just always felt that I wanted to, you know, make a difference, you know, to the players that it is. And I just had confidence in it, Tommy, and it's just something that developed.
What bit do you love about coaching? Because you know the way, I don't know, maybe I'm dumbing it down a wee bit now, but is it the on-field coaching, or is it the thinking about the game and setting up your tactics? And which bit do you love now, say, 10 years on even?
Improving players is the single biggest thing you enjoy. Tactics are important, but unless you improve players and improve their ability to be a brilliant teammate, and a brilliant teammate can be different things. It's not just getting in stuck in a fight, far from it. Do you make the right decisions at any given time? Do you understand why you've got to do something? Are you able in a split second to decide what tactic to implement, whether we squeeze up man-to-man, how we should kick outs? You know, to be fair to Paddy, when I come up against with Dublin, you see him putting up his hand up 3-4. He had a football intelligence. I would show videos of Dublin playing in 2017, and that gave you his throne, where Paddy's leading out the defensive side of it, yet he kicked a couple of wonder points. It's trying to improve individuals so that they are able to make decisions, you know, in each given situation, because tactics and tactics boards and one thing or another, they're completely overrated. And in some basis video analysis, each play you've got to try to empower each player to make their own decisions, and that's what I enjoy most, seeing that improvement in players. Because if you improve each player to be a good teammate, you're going to have a serious team.
So we've spoken, and I know Andy's going into it with Leitrim now, but we've all sat in scenarios where we're watching video analysis and this is just a box ticking exercise, or we're doing a training session and it's tactics, and it's off the wall stuff. It's completely irrelevant. The absolute bottom line for any coach is make your players better. Know your players and make them better. And if you can do that, as Rory's saying, you've got a hell of a chance in any, whether it's county, whether it's club, whether it's senior, whether it's minor, whatever it is. Connect with your players and understand what makes them tick and try and make them better. And people get caught up in all the other stuff, all the fluffy stuff around the sides, but it's a very simple game if you're a really effective coach. And it is that kind of touching on just influencing your players to play to their potential. We always say it, Andy, but Rory, I have a question in relation to, we were obviously playing in that really famous game for Donegal in 2014. It was a massive influence on us as a Dublin team and what we went on to achieve over 5 or 6 years after that. You just win that game, kind of a master plan, and look, completely outsmarted us and outperformed us that day in a game where we were red hot favourites going into, you know, and maybe that it definitely did play on our minds that we just had to show up and we'd win this game. So we're caught out there. Jim then steps away after that. He's had obviously the All-Ireland win, Ulster titles, massive influence in the county, like an iconic figure, not just in Donegal, in Gaelic games coaching. And you come in and take over from him then. Haven't had that massive relationship with him. Like I say, the connection you guys have had. Was that hard for you to do that? Or how did that go? How did that process go for you taking over the conversation with Jim or your style of play? Or
me and him had kind of parted ways in 2013. You know, obviously before that 2014 year, and Jim kind of put his shoulder to the wheel, and we'd had a difference of opinion in players, and you know, some players that end up winning All-Stars this year. He did that year. He didn't rate, which I did. You know, I'll not get into it because it's not fair in the players. There's other players you want to start, but when I came out, I actually, at the end of 2014, and the players kind of made it known that they'd like me to get in. Hand on heart, I knew the players were physically past their best. Neil Gallagher, Rory Gallagher, Colin McFadden, Ryan Bradley had gone away. Andy Thompson was going to England. You had Carl heading for the latter stage of his career. Eamon McGee was on his last legs. It was difficult, but there's no way in the world I didn't want to go back in to be part of it with them. So it is. But honestly, did I believe there was going to be an All-Ireland that team? No. I felt that, the way we played in 11, 12, parts of 13, even 14, the year Donegal beat Dublin with that super result, they'd been flat enough up to that, and they were brilliant that day. And I think Dublin were very naive in what they did, as we all know now, and they learned massively, but even the final, they were flat. And it was difficult to, and none of that period was the best and got out of Michael Murphy. So it wasn't, but I just felt I had to go in out of loyalty to players. Plus, I absolutely loved it, Paddy. And, you love being involved, no matter what, even though I didn't feel we had the same qualities we had, you had a minor team in 14 that now Owen Ban and all those guys are part of. You just felt that you had to continue to try to be the best. You were hoping all the time to win Ulster, to get a handier quarter-final, to get one game to get to an All-Ireland final. And we lost Ulster finals in 15 by a point against Monaghan. Patrick had a shot, went over the post, could have been thing. And, we lost that, but at the same time, we beat Tyrone in the preliminary round, beat Armagh, we ran them to a point the year before, and beat Derry to get the final. It was a massive run. In 16 then, we lost the last minute. It was at the height of defensive football, but one of the reasons I stuck to defensive football, and I would probably say we went even more defensive in 15 and 16, is because our legs were gone. No matter what, our legs were gone. And the Owen Van Gallers and the Steve McManaman and the King, they weren't ready to play at that stage. We didn't have the man markers to play. We played a very much a zonal system. We didn't have Paul Durkin playing as well. We lost Neil Gallagher. We weren't getting the same bodies in the field. But I got an awful lot of criticism about it, But we couldn't beat them big teams without playing that style of football. We didn't have the legs. We didn't have the mobility.
We played this in the quarters, and we felt that. We knew we played at the boards because we knew this is what Donegal are going to.
Yeah, you play Kilkenny wing back.
Yeah. So we're just like, right, we're going to have a lot of the ball here. This is the way to break it down, and that's the way it transpired. And we were a lot more focused, obviously, in 16 than we were in 14. But we would have felt
good in injury time in that game. It was 15 points to 1-9.
Yeah,
and then you know what I mean. And we were close, but no. We got Dermo sent off, in fairness. So he did. He was
the only one that did that, Rory. Don't worry.
He got booked silly in the first half. We targeted him, started the second half, and it did bring the favour back into us. But that was our only way of surviving. But it was like a last hurrah for those players. And if we went toe to toe, use that day, you still should have trounced us anyway. So you did. But you were just happy at that stage to win the game and keep the ball.
100%.
You mentioned McFadden there. He was like, if we go back to the game plan in 2012. Like, you just needed McFadden humming, didn't he, all the time? He was the finisher, because that allowed G Murphy to go out the field a tiny bit to help out with that plan. Yeah.
The player Colin McFadden was, and I never would have thought it looking in from the outside. So it is. I obviously had serious talent and some big displays, and I'd like to think I put Jim's mind at ease a wee bit. There was a famous incident in 2010 when he was taken off and he was videoed up in Armagh smiling as if he didn't care. And Jim was under a bit of pressure for him, but I loved him. The minute I got working with him, he'd come back, I think, from honeymoon. He wasn't too fit. He was carrying a bit of weight. So he was. But he was unbelievable. And he was my type of player, which I imagine you are, Andy, as well, and Paddy. Out to training first, away last. Loved playing football. But the one thing about him, he was absolutely ruthless. No cornerbacks give him abuse. Because he stood his ground. He took no crap. He learned from Murphy in the work rate, and which wouldn't have been his forte. And he laid out our first line. As I said, we defended with 5 forwards against 6 or 7 all the time. The ground he covered. So it gave him energy and motivation, but his accuracy was absolutely unearned. Like, he didn't have the best Ulster Championship, by the way I'd expect him to play. He scored heavily, maybe against Down in the final. But the scores he got against Kerry, Cork and Mayo, his free taking, his long range shooting, his ability to score goals in tight games was absolutely sensational. Even the goal against yourselves, low and hard. Low and hard. It's not accidental that goes in, so it's not. It was just brilliant. He scored a brilliant goal against Tyrone, I think, at 15 or 13, maybe in the championship as well. He never missed a free in my time that actually counted.
Can I ask you about another Donegal lad that you would have came across from a very young age? You mentioned Martin McHugh from back in Sligo IT, and I know that Martin probably put a word in with Jim in and around the time that he was looking for a selector back then as well. You mentioned Mark and how important he was in 2012. You would have coached Ryan at club level. You would have seen him at underage, and he would have been becoming a key player when you were a manager then as well. Did you know that Ryan McHugh was going to be the player he was at that when he was a kid?
I knew in 2001 and 2 when he used to be squirting about Sligo Sigerson training, you know. And at the time, I used to be asking Martin about him, you know, and he says, you want to see him chasing sheep, he never gives up, you know. So it is, they didn't need a sheepdog, you know. But when I moved to Donegal or to Killybegs direction, Tommy, in 2009, Ryan, what age is he now? He's 27 now, so what is he there? 15?
16, yeah.
He used to be tortured to go to the gym. I was never much into weights or anything like that, so I wasn't. Used to be tortured to go to the gym in the mornings, but a bit like I would have spent a lot of time with Paddy in particular and his age group. You know, I would, you know, when we were in Bridges, even when there'd be no training, I'd organise Paddy and different lads to go down in evenings or, you know, maybe Sundays and just do different wee skills or different sort of things. He started doing it at Ryan as well, and at a few different, you know, of his players now that have went on. Matthew McLean, who's won a club champion as well, be another fella, Patrick at times, Owen McHugh. But Ryan was the one with the phenomenal attitude. So he was, you know. Mark was a phenomenal competitor, didn't have the same relentless attitude to train that Ryan has. But Ryan's ability, you know, to get the most out of himself. But at the same time, there's something you can't teach players. People ask me Ryan's greatest gift, and I'd like to see, obviously not at Derry's expense anymore, his ability to time when to make a support run and sense the opportunity to create a goal scoring opportunity. There's no, like, it's magic that he has. It's a bit like Andy's ability inside, even when he's later on to show. It's very hard to coach a player that, you know, when you do a lot, you know, you can do an awful lot of work, but Ryan could sense a counter-attack. He could sense when a kick out was going to be run. He could sense when Lacey was going to sidestep a fella and take a run and this create a goal. And he just became a brilliant player. He's a player myself and Jim would have disagreed with. I would have wanted him straight into the team in 2013. He ended up coming on in Ulster final. He ended up in 14 being brilliant. And I do laugh, you know, he played in an Ulster final. He went man-to-man and Darren Hughes midfield. Obviously, there wasn't many long kick-outs, but he showed me one day there when I said he's beefed up there last year during COVID, is a text or something to me or a picture. He was only 67 or 68 kg playing midfield in Ulster final, you know.
Wow. I hadn't caught that at the time. And Darren Hughes is no easy man to go up against, no matter what size you're.
No, he's not. And Darren was at his peak, and it was a great. I believe Ryan got the better of him, but at the time. But no, he's a really brilliant attitude, and he's one of the leaders in the team now. And you know, he'll be looking to push on. But and again, bringing back to Paddy, I remember coming across against Dublin, you know, in games, and we'd be having a kick out, and Dublin would be pressing, and Paddy be shouting zonal, but Mark 5, and he'd put his hand up for 5 would be Ryan. That's Paddy's leadership, be able to lead that out, you know.
Every time we played Donegal.
Yeah. Apart from 2014.
Apart from 14. So 14 was the massive lesson that maybe we should actually try and mark Ryan McHugh here. Yeah. But every single time we played them after that, it was, and he'd do this little thing, he'd stand in the middle of the pitch, he's not interested, he'd have his head down, and he just know they're booming a kick out long, and he's just going to sprint. And we had someone detailed to stop him. He was going to go, and you needed to be ready. And there was so much we took from that game in 14. Like I say, I thought it was a massive game for us to lose it, and to lose it in that way to what Dublin ultimately went on and achieved. And I think a few people have said this. I don't think we probably would have achieved what we did if we'd have scraped through that game or we'd got away with it somehow. So it was, Roy McHugh was a massive part of that we just had to stop him. He was their key threat, obviously along with Murphy and McBrearty and these guys as well. But it's gas. He was the one guy everyone was hanging out of, no matter what. No matter if you were close.
It's still the case. It's still the case in every game. Rory, can I just say, like, this is the 24th episode of the Football Pod we've done this summer, and I hadn't felt like I'd met two people as obsessed with football as Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran until I met you. Like, you absolutely love football. Can I bring you back way before that? You mentioned your cousin Ramey, you mentioned your brother Ronan. I think you mentioned your dad and your uncles are involved in football. Were you just born with a football in your hand? Like, where did this start for you?
Well, it was either farming or football, and I had no interest in farming. People, when I go to Dublin, people go, "Are you serious? You're a farm?" Not many people, because me and Raymond weren't very good farmers, or certainly not Ronan. But no, it was just football, you know, Tommy. And no, we didn't have a much of a tradition, you know, in Fermanagh, but we were very fortunate to go to St. Michael's, where we had Peter McGinnity. The boys would remember he was Fermanagh's first ever All-Star in 1982.
We did a piece last year on. We went around the country to start of COVID. We call it the Mount Rushmore. We went to every county. And Peter McGinnity was the first man, alongside, I think Barney Curley would have made it as well in Fermanagh.
Barney Curley, yeah.
You know, but McGinnity, I learned about McGinnity then, an absolute legend in Fermanagh.
Yeah, and he a lot of the skill sessions I'd have done with Paddy and so many people was the skill sessions he done with us. He was an unbelievably skillful footballer. And Dom Carrigan, who was seen in the limelight yesterday, won a Leitrim title. Andy and him, he was blowing up Leitrim football that they're going to win 3 or 4 Connachts in a row. So
no pressure.
I don't mind him saying he's a tendency to talk it up. You know, so he has. But they brought a phenomenal passion to us. Like we were in St. Michael's and Enniskillen, and it's a bit different. Probably the same as Andy went to school in Mayo. Paddy would be different, even though it was at Declan's he went to. We were just GA, and it gave us a chance to compete with Mahara and with Marafelt, with Oma and Dungannon, and we just felt we were good enough. Like, you know, I didn't think for 1 minute. I played a bit of soccer, even though it wasn't really any in our area, and I had an opportunity to go over to England to play at the time, albeit Sky TV wasn't what it is now. But I used to think, why would I be doing that when I can win Ulster Championships and All-Irelands with Fermanagh?
Who were the clubs?
It
was United and...
It was at Blackburn when they were Premier League champions and Celtic, but they all seen what a lot of defenders started to see. It was just too slow.
Back 5, Rory.
Yeah. So it is. But
what age are you then, Rory? Are you
14, 15, 16? But like Paddy was playing, I was playing for Fermanagh Minors very young, and I was in the senior team then. You know, when under 21s when you're 16, and the senior team when you're 17, and you just there was nothing else. But again, it's incomparable exposure to soccer now. You know, I'm not that old, but you know, 23 years ago, 25 years ago, Sky TV was only coming in. It was not the same animal it is now, you know.
And would you think soccer has an influence on the way you coach?
On who, sorry?
Would soccer have an influence on any of the way you coach now?
Oh, definitely on the way I defend.
Yeah.
Soccer was unbelievable, Andy. See the level of coaching I got with Northern Ireland schoolboys in particular, who were limited, you know. So how would you explain it at the time? I remember the manager at the time telling me dad went on a trip. There's £30,000 invested in Northern Ireland schools at the time. There's 1.5 million invested in Germany at the same age. So we had to get the most out of ourselves. But it was all about defending areas. No one went to defend. No one went to mark tight to play defending as a collective. And that was a massive influence on me. And you know, when I was in Dublin, and we would have bringing clients to Croke Park. You'd have been watching the games evolve. And I remember the game you came on and the Dublin messed up in 06, was it? When you were 7 points down, you score a goal or 2 goals out there or something.
Scored a goal,
yeah. You know, and not being able to see out the lead. I would have seen Dublin and Kerry in 2007. See Dublin in 08 when people would have. I actually remember when we first ever bet. I bet that Tyrone would beat Dublin in 08. That they're blowing up. You'd see the faults in teams. You'd be watching it and how to defend against top forwards. You know. But look, teams have caught on to it now, you know. So there is, you know, you just can't defend deep. You've got to be able to mark and you've got to be able to pressure the ball. But for a while, it was probably too easy in Gaelic football just to defend areas, you know.
You said you were young when you first started playing for Fermanagh Minors. You were 14 years old playing corner back. The 2 boys beside you had their stint in the backs as well. You weren't long back in there, were you?
No, and it wasn't very good either, Tommy, believe me. So it wasn't. But no, I wasn't capable of being a defender in Gaelic football. I was a defender in soccer, which my son and daughters find hard to believe. You know, when you're talking, you know, when they're that young now, you're either a forward or a back. You know, in both sports. But no, listen, defending is a very specialist. Even back then it was, but even more so now. You know, particularly in the full back line, you know, you've got to be a very specialist type of player to play there.
But Rory, isn't that like, I would have felt the evolution of what Dublin did, and you see it now even in club teams doing that. It's just being open-minded to other sports, and soccer and basketball. We would have had an influence with Dublin as well. Exactly what you're saying there. When to defend, how you move across the pitch as your forward line, as your midfielders, just condensing the space. Like Croke Park is a massive pitch. If you're leaving guys one-on-one, no matter who they are, even if they are the top cream of the crop, you know, I'm thinking around and McNamee there on David Clifford in the centre. McNamee probably won an all-star, and Clifford takes it to the absolute cleaners. You cannot leave guys one-on-one anymore. And it's that, can you get your system, can you get your team to shift across and just cut down that space? That's a soccer, you know, it's zone mark and getting to the wall, all that stuff. Like.
Yeah, well, like I would have said along, good players need time and space no matter what. Bad players need even more time and space. Do you know what I mean? Or average players, and there still is some average inter-county players who are just athletes, playing at a high level. But it's always shifting across. You've got to have that's what I say with individuals. You've got to trust that individual. Like Jim Gavin wasn't long coming in, nailing his colours to mast with you, Paddy, playing Dean Rock. Do you know what I mean? So it is. And it wasn't just for your attacking prowess. It was for your ability to create space for Berto and others, but also for your defensive instincts. So it is. And it was your ability to seize the moment, because that ground that you can cover, that ability to get your cornerback turned or get a defender turned, buys you the time to get cover on the star forwards up the pitch. And, it has to be just a relentless kind of understanding among quality players that they're able to do that, And I don't mind saying this, the big coaching things I would have done with Fermanagh and even Derry in 2019 was the video of the All-Ireland semi-final Tyrone in Dublin 2017. Like, people forget, despite Dublin hammering them that day, a lot of people in that, I was at them game, expected Tyrone to win the game, that hammered everybody in Ulster. Yeah. This unbelievable defensive template with brilliant counter-attacking players. So they did. But Dublin that day were more defensive than Tyrone, and I saw a classic.
We were nervous ourselves, like. Because
we were nervous. I was talking to Dick Darcy, a good bit coming up to it. You were very nervous, And I went to show the video of a 50 from Dean Rock dropping short, and Paddy just sprinted out, pointing out, to just get all goal side, to not be exposed to any level of counter attacks. But it was like that. It was Dean Rock as well. The whole team. Paul Mannion then gets all the praise for the turnovers. But it was just the understanding from the home team. That's how, whether it's Johnny Cooper, Cian O'Sullivan, get to play the sweeper role as well. People look at the forwards and they look at you kicked a couple of points from out in the wing. Conor Callan scored a brilliant goal that day. But you suffocated Tyrone when they had the ball. You never exposed yourself to them counter-attacks. They're still going to get scores, but you made to control the game. And, it's defending's a dirty word. And I take great joy in defending. It's 50% of the game. When you're playing for Fermanagh and you're looking up and it's 2-17 to 4 points, and me and Raymond are discussing going to Coppers from Portlaoise about 20 minutes into the game, you'll be damn glad of how to defend as a team.
But even for us, we've spoke about that game. We were nervous going into that game because we hadn't played. Tyrone had been in Division 2. Yeah. Like I said, they'd steamrolled the Ulster Championship. They'd been we hadn't played them since probably, I think maybe 14 or 15 up in Oma.
Yeah.
We were nervous because everyone was talking about Tyrone. And I remember we prepared for that game as... We didn't play that well in the final now in the first half, particularly, and Mayo did a job on us. We managed to pull it out of the bag, but particularly the first 35 minutes, I thought that first half, I remember I feel we bullied Tyrone. I don't think Tyrone were ready for that. They didn't expect it. And I remember...
John Small certainly bullied Peter Hart.
Yeah, he did. I remember having a go off Tiernan McCann and Niall Sludden as well, and just looking at them, and they were flabbergasted. Like, they were just buried every time they were trying to run, and we were just pushing them back. And they were looking to the ref. They were looking around. It was Sean Kavanagh's last. Was it his last game? I think you were talking.
Sean Kavanagh's game, yeah.
They weren't ready for that, and there was a lot of chat before that, and there was nervousness on our behalf, but also preparation in it. That this is what it was going to take for us to win that game, and it was a massive, massive performance for that team.
But it was also an unbelievable display of attacking football against a brilliant defensive team. Colin Kavanagh, who was a brilliant sweeper for 3-4 years, probably the best in the country at that stage, you took him completely out of the game with the way you opened up the pitch. You played with depth. You just didn't have players standing in positions. Brian Fenton, whoever. You had no players playing position. Brian Fenton sometimes was inside. Paul Mannion sometimes was that forward. Cian O'Sullivan, going inside, and then the ability. Like yourself, Conor Callan, Mannion at times, to sense the one-on-one. So it is. And I just felt that was a Dublin team at their peak around 17, 18 at that stage.
It's a huge thought, though, Rory, doesn't it? Like, I was even thinking when you were talking about Lacey before, you rarely played him up the centre because that's where the channel was going to be blocked. You moved up, you used to play him right, and then you nearly had two playmakers, one on the right side with Lacey and Martin McHugh in the centre. So it's not just we'll put these fellas here. And ye thought about that. Dublin thought about moving Colin Kavanagh. It wasn't just let's just go in there and use all our good players.
Yeah, no, that's it. And the angles you can attack, and everybody wants to get to the D, but the opposition know that better than anybody else. So they do. So the top players can attack space, and then they'll find a way to the goals. And obviously Dublin, when they're at their peak for them years, they might have fisted points they got. the amount of times they opened up the D. But also a big part of it is, and you'll find this, Andy, with Leitrim, when they don't have the same quality of players. It was the quality of the Dublin players that you could leave nobody free.
Yeah.
You know, that they had all players that understood how to make an impact when it was their choice, you know. So it is, and there's a lot of talk about Dublin's percentage shooting, but when they've that much space in those key areas, and the reason they've that much space is because their players can't be left free. Their players create the space for each other. You know, that's such a selfless game. And, you know, the likes of yourselves, Mayo and Kerry, you know, for the last number of years, you have all been very much at that. Probably, you know, Mayo, you know, in my opinion, Andy, lacked the quality, composure. You know, the Dublin would have had 7 or 8, 9 players of the real composure. You just weren't blessed with that, you know.
Yeah, I can't argue with that argument.
I'm not saying that, Andy.
I couldn't. But okay,
I text Rory to say that.
I think it's fair, especially when you're looking at what was being brought off the bench. We've often mentioned Costello, what he did with them 4 points coming down. You know, Connolly
even Brogan coming off that day off the bench.
You know, the quality is just insane. So, Rory, just I'm interested in how, right, when you started compared to now, how you've moved your coach, and how, Joe, what did you believe was absolutely essential when you started? Because I know I'd be very kind of principled now. What has shifted? What was like what you used to think was absolutely key that you think now is absolutely rubbish? Is there anything that stands out?
Honestly, Andy, seeing 11 and 12, it was a relentless intensity. You know, it was to make us believe that we would go to a length greater than anybody else at any given time. It was a very, very simple formula. So it was, you know, and it served us well. We won 15 championship matches out of 16, you know, like probably only Dublin have done that. I'm not sure even yourselves. Like, you know, if Man City or Liverpool win 15 Premiership games out of 16, the Premiership's over. So it is, you know, they've got that much of a lead. But we drove it with relentless intensity. And then it was just communicating to the players, you know, what's required of them on an individual basis. So it was, and that was the main coaching philosophy, that we would bring an intensity and a hunger and a drive that was incomparable to anybody else. You know, we felt probably, you know, hand on heart, we were delighted to see Mayo win in 2012. You know, we actually stopped at the halfway house. We won beer. Paddy, you know, the halfway house. Yeah, we felt we had the All-Ireland won, because I still think, I don't want Neil McGee to take this the wrong way, I don't think we'd have handled Berno. So he did at the time.
In 12?
In 12. He was, even though he missed the goal since against Mayo, I just felt that, you know, that period, there's other brilliant forwards, but he was the most devastating forward in the country for 3 or 4 years. Probably the most devastating forward I've seen, even though I feel there's been better all-round forwards. He could finish you on his own. And I just felt with the way Flynn was going, the way Connolly was going, other players that time, Berno would have caused us massive trouble in that final. Because he would have completely dominated Mark McHugh. You'd almost had to double mark him, which would have left up space for other people to run through and that sort of thing, you know. But to go back to that, it was a ferocious intensity early on. It's evolved much more into coaching players. And I'm doing an awful lot of work, Andy, you know, in coaching teams, obviously how to defend, but how to attack, you know, how to earn the right to give the ball to man in a better position, when to know to avoid trouble, to avoid contact. We get caught up in stats. I have no interest in stats whatsoever. So I haven't. I would rather.
What do you mean by that? What
do you mean by that? As a coach, Rory, Jesus, that's Andy's all in on stats.
I'm not, I swear.
just elaborate. What do you mean, like?
If somebody tells me with 15 wides, it means nothing to me. So it doesn't. I would say, well, you have 4 stupid decisions, you know. So the shot was never on, so it wasn't. So there's no point in talking about that. I spent an awful lot of time. There's good wides and there's bad wides. There's Kieran Kilkenny in the last 5 years has never kicked a bad wide. He's missed shots and he's dropped balls short. He's never kicked a bad wide because it's the right decision to make. We spent an awful lot of time in Andy and how to teach the players how to be better in each given situation. You know, and it has to start very basic, you know. You know, and even for defending, a defender can't win every ball, but he can defend every situation.
Yeah. Rory, this year, the first big game of the championship was you guys against Donegal and Ballybuffet. We were waiting for it. Everyone was waiting for a decent game to kick off, and that was a spectacular game. We could hear you roaring for the last 10 minutes on RTE. So you had no voice for the next 3 days after that match, no doubt.
No, I was a bit like you after we lost that under-21 final and went into the club. I was crying. I was crying myself that evening, you know.
Lucan, that one in Bridget's.
No, the one we lost to Jude's, remember, on the Sunday morning, the day after you played minor championship.
Jesus Christ. Dublin up, yeah. We won the minor championship the day before with Dublin against Westmeath. And we played
Dublin against Offaly.
Yeah, played the Sunday in Parnell Park against Jude. And we were winning 3 points up and then we lost the next one.
And it was carried over from the year before. It was the 2005 championship, and it wasn't played in May 2006. So it was. And Paddy and Chris Guggan's Judes, they were still minors, and it was played the day after they played for Dublin minors. It was my first experience of Kevin McMenamin. He scored the equalising point in normal time and the winning point in extra time.
Okay, so he didn't just do it to Mayo or Kerry.
No, he's done it to everybody. So he did.
I got knocked out of the championship last Friday evening. And these boys are crying about 2006.
You had 24 episodes crying about all the All-Irelands.
Hey, come on! Hey, that's low.
Rory, the last play, David.
The Donegal Derry, yeah.
What was your reaction to that?
I was very disappointed in our attacking. And if you goes the difference in say Dublin at their best for them couple of years, and probably Tyrone now. We had players in the ball, and I don't mind them hearing it now because when we get back together, we hear it. We had players in the ball. Fair enough, they might be wearing number 13 or number 15 or 10 on their back, but they should have made incisions to get us into scoring positions. And they already try and take a shot. There was opportunities on for them to drive at them and get us inside 30 yards or inside 25 yards, and they didn't take it. So basically, we played with our tails between our legs when it counted. And for us to improve, we need more players with that. I won't say scoring threat, but that threat to attack, you know, Dublin, to be fair, the way Johnny Cooper's evolved his game, Freddie McMahon, used to see Freddie McMahon, Gucci kick a point, he'd go up and kick two in the next couple of minutes. It's not just about defenders kicking points, but you've got to have those players able to it. If you go to the Tyrone game against Kerry this year, Clifford was fleecing them, but McNamee went up and kicked a point early on, Hampsey went up and kicked a point, and McKiernan on the 3-full back line. Gone are the days, and I would say Andy'll find this and lead them, it's in the lower division teams, we have players that he just does a job. You just don't do a job anymore.
100%.
So you went from 3 years with Donegal, where I suppose you felt like maybe some of the players when you took it over were getting on in their time. You knew that going into it. There was a real loyalty going in. I know that didn't end great. That was probably quite upsetting the way it ended for you. But you went back to Fermanagh then. Do you want to dwell on the upsetting part in Donegal? It probably was tough to take the way it ended. It was soured a wee bit.
It absolutely was. I wouldn't say soured, but I was annoyed at it. I had sat down at the end of 2016. Christie was gone, Colin McFadden was gone, Eamon McGee was gone, Big Deal was gone, Rory Kavanagh, probably Andy Thompson, maybe a couple others, at that stage. Carl was gone. And obviously the younger players coming in. And we ended up... And Andy, again, I can blame Andy for a lot in life now. Andy and them put on a massive press down in Castlebar in the second half of the last league game. Andy, if you remember, where we had outplayed just in the first half. I think we were 11-1-5 up, and we had the breeze in the second half. And he's brought on big Aidan O'Shea, and Murphy got obsessed with him as well. But you beat us by a point or two, where we would have made the league final that year, which would have been an unbelievable achievement. So it would have been, Tommy, with an unbelievably young team. And there's an awful lot of rubbish put out there, and some of it put out by the Donegal management, the current Donegal management, that changing the style of play. We had changed our style of play in 2017. So we had. And I think the difference in what we scored in 2017 and what Donegal scored in 2018 in the league was a point or two. And we didn't have Paddy Brady in 2017 for 5 of the games. So it is. We had changed our style of play. Yes, you're still playing a sweeper, you're still defending deep, but we were playing the same way that Donegal have played since, practically. Same way that Tyrone are playing now. Well, maybe not the same way as Tyrone, same way Dublin were playing at the time. So we did. And we'd introduced an awful lot of those younger players. We had Murphy playing out of his skin in the middle of the field. Tyrone hockeyed us the way Tyrone hockeyed anybody. And then the Galway game fell away from us. But if you'd asked me at the start of the year, did I expect us to win it? And I would have said no. So I didn't. But we had 4 games in Division 1, drawn 1 and lost 2. It was a very good record and kept Donegal competitive. So it is. Hand and heart, have Donegal pushed on since then? There's people in Donegal would say, yeah, there's people that don't like the way I coach the team and can read into rubbish. So it is. Donegal haven't beat any of the top guns since. They've failed in the big occasions. That you've got a couple of Ulster titles. So it is absolutely. I feel we would if we would have kept going on that journey, so we would. But I was disappointed but Declan wanted the job, and they were pushing that from all angles.
I suppose you were under no qualms when you were going in that it was going to be a transitional period. You probably had that in your head, you know?
And didn't mind being in it at the time for the long haul. I absolutely loved it. And, you know, I don't mind. You get tough days. You just don't win every day, as Donegal have seen since. You know, it's very few Dublins out there. So there are very few Mayos even can get to 5-6 finals in an 8 or 9 year period, you know. But listen, I wouldn't swap a day with Tommy. I absolutely loved it. I have a great rapport with the players that I was with for a long time, you know, and even the younger players now, and very much enjoyed being part of, you know, striving to be better for them all the time.
I'm happy I let you in there, but my question that I was starting off with was, when you go from Donegal to Fermanagh, and you've got a couple of years of Fermanagh, and you had some big results in Fermanagh, but you know, you were fighting against the curve as you always have done in Fermanagh. You've never won a provincial title, so you were at a certain level there, and I know you probably had a big job getting certain players, convincing them to play and getting the best out of them. What was that like, going back home and getting stuck in there? Like, were you enthused? Were you excited for that project when you got in there? What was driving you?
I don't know, Tommy. I definitely wasn't enthused at the start, so I wasn't, or excited. But I said to myself, you know, they're not bad from what I've seen, some of the players. And I just said, you know, I was always frustrated, generally always frustrated playing for Fermanagh. Probably didn't handle myself the right way, would have made mistakes. But I said, look, I want to go in and try to make a difference. You know, there's definitely some good players who Peter Canavan had brought in with really good habits that Pete McGrath pushed on for a couple of years. You know, they got them up between Division 2 and 3 from Peter Canavan going in and taking them under 4. And they'd done an awful lot right. I knew the commitment levels would be fairly good. So I did. But I just said I'm going to go in and give this an almighty shot for a good friend of mine, we McCabe, Cian. He said, we'll do this for 1 year, you know, and Ricey came in. And as Ricey used to just shrug his shoulders with maybe some of the setups that we had, this is for man, and he just laughed, you know. So it is. But we set out with a very clear agenda. We wanted to be confrontational. We wanted to be in your face. We wanted to be unbelievably aggressive and the best defensive team in the country, because we didn't have the forwards. And the forwards that we had weren't either at the fitness. There's a lot made at the two Quigleys, and Sean a lot mind me telling this, or Shamey. They were the other side of 17 stone when I first met them. So they were. And Shamey'd never played Ulster Championship football.
I couldn't believe that he had never played Ulster Championship before you came in.
No, and indeed, actually, after one of the games, Shane rang Peter Canavan. Peter Canavan's at a county, he managed them as well, and didn't go. So I can't believe he's got him on the pitch, you know. But he was a great character, and he trained really, really well. Unbelievably intelligent player. He kicked 6 points the day we beat Armagh. You know, he helped us get promoted out of Division 3. Sean was a very good talent, but when you don't have star power forwards with pace and power and movement and Fermanagh, you're not going to have star defenders able to mark them. So we played a very defined style of football, and it was a crazy period as well, because you win, you get promoted out of Division 3, and we beat Armagh, beat Monaghan. You know, the year before, Fermanagh played both teams in the championship and lost by 10 or 11 points against both, conceding 121 and 120 or something like that. And we played them and conceded 7 points in 10. You know, our style of play worked, and I actually feel the criticism was crazy. You know, we're not from Kerry, we're not from Dublin or Meath, you know, in their heyday with the population. So it is. And even though we were trounced in the final, you know, it's because we didn't prepare properly, because our heads were, some of the players, the occasion got to us. So it is our style of football. You know, the following year brought Donegal to 15-10 or something like that. We were actually 10-8 down in a championship match. We missed a free. So it is. But it was a style of football that worked for those players. Put it this way, you know, Ricey was very brave to take them on. You know, and as I said at the time, I don't believe Fermanagh will ever get as good a results as we got in Division 2. We were 5 games unbeaten in Division 2. We actually played Dublin before the league. Paddy, remember, I think he was playing. He mightn't have been as fit as he should have been either. The week before the league, you know, started. We went 5 games unbeaten in Division 2. And if we had scored a freeze and not given away a bad goal, we'd been promoted already in 2019, which would have been unbelievable.
Yeah. No, 100%. Can I get to the last part of my question? Because it's a long question.
Go on.
Because we've just been so excited about Derry this year, Rory. We really have. When did you start getting excited about Derry?
Was
it this year?
After COVID hit. It's a wild thing to say. Kieran Mina, by right-hand man, the two of us worked hand in hand together. Kieran convinced me to get involved in Derry. He had been in the previous year and he assured me that the talent was there. I didn't see it the first few months. I didn't see the right attitude. So it is, but COVID hit and it gave us a good chance to reflect. We shortened the panel, but I started to get very excited then. Once we got to spend time together, and when I say spend time together, COVID obviously was a break, and we were able to communicate with them and was able to go out and meet them, get a feel for them. It was unbelievably difficult at the start. You Slaughtneil hurlers playing, you Coleraine hurlers playing. But once I got to know, say, the Slaughtneil bears in particular, Christopher, Brendan, Shane, Tad, Carl, unfortunately was injured, and seen what they were about, the quality of them, got to work with Niall Loughlin, Oran Lynch and goals. I started to see, a serious bunch of players. So I did, with a great attitude, and from here on in, or from then on to now, and the way forward for us, we just want to win Ulster Champions. So we want to keep competing for All Irelands. That's not easy done, but there's a lot of focus. As Paddy focused on the last play, I was absolutely gutted that we weren't going in the last 6 minutes 5-6 points up. I think Donegal, the way Tyrone, I know Murphy was sent off, but Tyrone scored 23 points. He could have scored more goals because Donegal, we missed. We hit the crossbar. We should have had a penalty. We missed another goal chance. We put a ball over the bar that I hate, and I'll tell the player that when I meet him. They put us 3 or 4 up, and we should have went for a goal. Yep. We got inside the Donegal. It's very hard in intercounty football to get inside the 21 of any team. We get inside it regularly, and we didn't make it count. We missed frees as well that we shouldn't have missed. They're all massive. There's a lot of talk about tactics, but free taking goes a long way as well.
Yeah, me and Tommy watched it over in Castlebar together.
we weren't roaring as much as you, but we were roaring a lot.
When it hit the crossbar, I couldn't believe it. It was just...
I know.
It was crazy. How are you getting these guys home from Australia? We want to know.
Yeah.
Look, listen, I had
the gaff there with them. They're just off camera there.
Glass is doing jumping jacks beside him.
It was funny watching him in a club championship match last night. He was wearing like an Edgar Davids screen on his face for a broken nose, but he was very good. But it's funny about Conor Glass. His big day at underage football, in particular, his biggest day probably was he was man of match against a favourite Donegal team, which I didn't really get to see the game because we were playing in the senior game after. But I'd heard a lot about him. But I was lucky enough. I have a sister who went out to Melbourne in 2013, and she would have met him several times out there and met his family. So I kind of felt I half knew a wee bit about him. But look, it was just brilliant. Conor's heart, is in Derry and his club Glen Mahara, who I expect the Slaughtneil boys not likely to think, but I expect them to win the championship the way they're playing at the minute. I think they're going to win a number of championships. The quality they have, they've never won one, so he wanted to be part of that as well as he wanted to be part of Derry, and he just loves. And the way his leadership is growing, he's a real good teammate to everybody, and he's improving day by day. Anton Toll with Anthony's son. He hasn't played as much Gaelic. He's home now, unfortunately, a wee bit of osteopubis, but the two of them should be massive additions to us going forward.
Huge.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting, and it was so exciting to see Derry's progression. The buzz that you got from the league campaign this year, and you carried it into the championship. So I don't know. Hopefully, we're seeing much more of that next year, and we're seeing that continuing.
Can I ask 2 coaching questions?
Yeah. Jump in there.
Get rid of Rory. Just on coaching yourself, are you the on-field coach?
Yeah, I take myself, and Kieran takes some of it as well. But I don't know another way, Andy. I came in coaching. As some of the Donegal players, they just were used to it all the time with McGuinness and then myself, and they sort of said, "Geez, I don't know how some managers, can stand and not take coaching." So that's what they're used to. And particularly in Derry early on, Andy, I wanted those players and Fermanagh to feed my personality in the way that I wanted to go about playing, to feed my relentless drive, number one. So it is, but to also get a feel for the way I wanted them to play, both with the ball, without the ball, on opposition kickouts. And I feel if I wasn't extremely hands-on-hand, and early on, I would have taken a number of sessions to the Kieran and end of this with me. They'd have got a feel for how I do things. They have to have their own stamp as well, but they can see the direction I want to go. Now that's evolving now as we've nailed certain areas of how we play, particularly the basic tactical areas. But I feel if they don't feel the way I want the game played and the way I expect them to play, and even on an individual basis, small work before training, say with movement, where to win a ball, how to win a ball, your angles of support, how you attack, the way you attack space sometimes and understanding their space, the way that, I coach, there's, you can't just show for a ball out in front. There's different ways, there's different angles, there's different in behind. The chemistry then with players who are able to deliver the ball. I just feel I have to be very hands-on in that. Not to have to, but I want to be.
And just last question for me, I promise. Like during your time from day one when you went coaching into management, have you ever got anyone in to watch your coaching, to analyse you, to assess you?
No, there's been people have asked to come up and watch sessions, that I know, and I would always ask them. So I would. Okay. And you get a bit of feedback from the people that you're with, and even speak to the players as well, Andy, So it is. And but I'd be conscious, I'd make it clear that not everything I'm going to do is right. So it is. And you feel free to let me know. But I'd also be very much, I'd love to stand like Jim Gavin on the sideline. I'd love to be Bill Belichick with different coaches, and everybody has to stamp their own authority on it. And I'm comfortable at the way I coach. So it is. And, I definitely would learn bits from people, and I go to watch other people coaching and how they coach certain things. But they've got to feel who you are as well.
I think authenticity is the word you're looking for there, Rory, is it?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
Be true to yourself. Can I ask you two quick ones as well before we let you go, because we kept you way over time here. Sorry.
No bother.
Your favourite day as a footballer for Fermanagh, am I allowed to guess? It's hardly the 3-9 you scored against Monaghan when you broke a championship record in 2002, or is that fair to say?
As a player?
Yeah, as a player.
No, first time we played defensive. So it was. In 2001. So it was, or no, 2002, yeah. I scored 3-9 that day, Tommy, and we beat Monaghan and scored 4-13, But I wouldn't have seen myself as a prolific scorer. I would have started, I had to kick scores as frees because Fermanagh I was a better free taking there was. But we beat Armagh that day 4-13 to 2-11. And I was very disappointed with the change in the team that took the corner forward out who didn't score and put another corner forward in that it crowded my space. And I wasn't very happy going to play Armagh. But Armagh beat us 16-1-5 and actually should have beat us about 3-20-1-5, Yeah. But we played Armagh or Westmeath in the qualifiers. And Westmeath, if you remember, should have beat Meath in an All-Ireland quarter-final, I think the year before. Remember Desi missed a free. Desi Dolan in the corner. But we went down to Mullingar and we beat them 14-7. We played with 2 or 3 up the pitch with the rest behind the ball at the time. And that was a very rewarding victory for us because, playing for Fermanagh, yeah, we beat Monaghan, in a couple of championship matches. But beating out Westmeath that day was very good. Sorry, I'm just thinking I had another very good day. I enjoyed probably even better than that, Tommy. I forgot about this. We beat Donegal in Ballabofey in 2000. Hey. And going into this year, I had an unbeaten record in Ballabofey, believe it or not. I never lost either as a player or a manager. I'd played one and drawn one. Something like about 16 games, Tommy. But we played them in 2000. We beat Monaghan. Fermanagh hadn't won any championship matches from 1983 to 1999, apart from against Antrim. And in 1999, they beat Monaghan. But in 2000, we beat Monaghan at home. We went to Donegal, and they were still had Tony Boyle playing. And I actually played really well. I scored a lob goal in the first half. I scored 1-5 in the first half, and then I ran into my own man, and I scored a point there, but I had to go off. But we beat them in a really epic game. And we ended up going to play Armagh. And Armagh beat us 13-12 in an Ulster semi-final. And the Armagh team actually carried extra time and a replay, in All-Ireland semi-final. We did very, very good teams. That was probably the most enjoyable team to play with,
Okay. I'm glad I asked that one. And when you moved down to Bridges, was there ever any talk that, well, I know there was talk because I was reading back old Indo reports that you might go in with Dublin, or was that just all bluster?
No, there was plenty of talk about it, and you asked me was interested in it. Of course it was, yeah. I'd stopped playing for Fermanagh, I got fed up with it. I wanted to make my life in Dublin, and this was Dublin at the time. They didn't have that, Ray Cosgrove was probably, I don't want to speak for him, but he wouldn't have been the most natural free takers. He took it on at the time and they didn't have it, but there was talk about it, but it wasn't something that was Dublin or far, so it was over before it started,
Okay, fair enough. Any last questions, lads, before we let Rory go? There is one more, Rory. It's a big week in Gaelic football. Special Congress. The debate has been raging all week. We've been kind of, I suppose, one of the homes for it on Off the Ball. I think we've had about 9-10 hours of debates from all sides, all angles. We know that there's a strong majority from the GPA coming out in favour of it. We've heard some strong words from Ulster in terms of Brian McAvoy being completely against it. He reckons it'd be turkeys voting for Christmas if counties voted for it. And Michael Reynolds was very strong today, the Leinster secretary. He's totally against it as well. So I'd like to know where you stand, because you've had one of the most fascinating careers in football. It's brought you through so many counties, whether it be college in Sligo, football in Cavan, Antrim, playing in Fermanagh, Dublin, coaching in Derry, Donegal. Like, I don't know how many counties that is. It's about 10, 11, 12. Like, it's fascinating. Like, where do you stand on this?
I very much agree with Brian McAvoy. I actually listened whenever you contacted me. I listened to it. Wasn't that happy with the question from your buddies. So it is. I thought it was a bit waffly. Brian McAvoy hit home. He's a very passionate GA man. So he is. I'm completely against Proposal B. So I am. I think when you grow up, and the first day I ever met Paddy was after Dublin won their first Leinster when he was only 14, and I met him after the game. So he was in 2002. And it's not that long ago. So it's not the elation of Dublin. So it's not. I think there's two things you can win, as a young GA player: a provincial championship and an All Ireland. And people are saying, some of the arguments are that our teams have no realistic chance of winning All Ireland. That's not going to change no matter what. So it's not, the Premiership can only be won by 2 or 3 teams. There's hardly going to be a foreign team, just the way Newcastle were taking over. Somebody's not going to take over Waterford Gaelic footballers, or not going to take over Fermanagh Gaelic footballers from there and finance them. I think still in Fermanagh, you've a dream of winning a provincial championship, and to take that away would be totally wrong.
The provincials still would exist. The only thing they're taking away is the link between
the link. There'll be glorified challenge games. So there.
Do you really think that?
100%. 100%. And I think any player, the GPA made a comment speaking to some of the players. There was no big dialogue in many of the counties that I've spoken to about the players about it. So it isn't. I just believe it's flawed. I think if you look at the provincial championships, I was down at 2 Connacht finals in the last 4 or 5 years, which Roscommon won. Was the elation on that pitch. Andy lives in the Roscommon border, was unbelievable. So it was. Cavan winning it last year, Tipperary. If you look at Connacht, for example, you've Mayo hunting for it. You've Galway, you've Roscommon. In the last number, in 2015, Sligo were in the final. In 2013, London were. Andy, you're the odd one out, so the pressure's on you, right? So it is. If you look at Ulster,
not saying that. Look at him.
If you look at Ulster,
I was thinking Mayo there for a second. If I'm being honest. Yeah.
If you look at Ulster, every Ulster county has been in an Ulster final, and it is massive what it means to Fermanagh, Antrim, Cavan, Down, even though they haven't won them, but Cavan have won them. Munster has always been the same. So it has been Kerry and Cork. Cork aren't happy with the way they're progressing themselves. It's not easy for Waterford and Tipperary and Limerick and Clare, who are very strong dual counties. That has been taken into account. So it isn't. The elephant in the room, and I'm a massive Dublin GA supporter, is Dublin. Their dominance. Paddy, how many adult teams have Bridget's? 6. They used to have 6.
8, 9.
8 or 9 now, is it?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be 6. The numbers in Dublin, Dublin are going to be very untouchable in Leinster. It's up to Kildare and Meath and other counties. But going back to it, one of the other big flaws in Proposal B, why would you penalise the number 6th ranked team in the country that they don't get into All Ireland?
Well, and on that one, the number 6 ranked team in the country has lost 4 championship games. And I think in any championship year, no matter what championship it is, whether it's club championship or it's the regular championship we have at the minute, if you lose 4 games in championship, you're out.
Yeah. Well, Donegal won the All Ireland nearly sure in 2012, coming from 6th. We won the last league game.
That was in the league. That was in the league, though. Yeah, and you were unbeaten. You had 15 out of 16 games.
Yeah, but we finished 6th in the league. Why would you reward a team ranked number 23 or 4 and punish a team ranked number 6?
I 100% agree that Proposal B is flawed, 100%. Yeah. And I think that there's the biggest problem with it is that they're trying to please too many people.
Yes.
That's genuinely what I think is the biggest problem. And I totally agree with you. Not every county can win Sam Maguire. Like, look at him from Anna. I know you were utterly frustrated as a player. You always believed in, I suppose, your own county's hopes and what you could achieve. And, Fermanagh would have punched above their weights at times in those years. Yeah. Look at the population in some counties as compared to Dublin. You mentioned Dublin in 2002 there. We know that the GA president at the time, Sean Kelly, put a committee in place. Yeah. And they put a strategy in place to save football in the capital. Yeah. A lot of money's gone into it. It started to be redressed across the board. But all of that's besides. There's so many different conversations going on here. The structures don't feel right. It feels like we're set up in a competition with Ulster, Munster, Leinster, Connacht championships that were created by lines drawn 150 years ago. I just feel like it doesn't serve the players that put so much in these days. Like, I'm sure you see it yourself, all the training that goes in above in Derry, all the commitment, and like, it's class that Derry are flying at the minute. But like, would those boys be putting it in if they're only getting one, two championship games a year?
No, I agree with what you're saying. It is flawed. So it is. And if you're asking me, you know, and you've seen some of the way other players at the time could win provincial medals, would win in a couple of handy games or get to one final. If you look at Derry, what we had to come through, or times Donegal and sure Tyrone, I wouldn't be against 4 conference type things. So I wouldn't. We're a wee bit like the American sports. Yeah. So something like that. But I don't see why you should reward teams finishing number 23 or 4 and penalise teams ranked 6th and 7th. So it isn't. We already have the National League, and I sent you a text. Why don't we make 3 divisions? Yeah. You know, a 10, an 11, and 11. Give teams at least 9 or 10 games against teams at their own level. Then go into a top 16, 2 groups of 8 or 4 fours. Something like that, where you have a conference A, B, C, D, and if you win that, you go straight into a semi-final or whatever way you go, something like that. But I don't see why teams, you know, in Division 3 or 4, if someone told me, you know, in the last few days, there's 9 or 10 teams in the last 10, 12 years have never got out of Division 3, you know, never got as high as Division 2. Do you know what I mean? Is that honestly going to change? And why would you reward them and penalise, you know, Monaghan or Donegal or Tyrone or Galway for finishing 6th, 7th in the thing? I think that would be very demoralising.
100%. I read your structure, and I'll be honest, I read it and I definitely agreed with some parts of it, but part of me has felt that I can't really entertain any other structures. I know there was a column at the weekend putting forward a couple of other structures. I'm just struggling to entertain other structures at the minute. I just think that some sort of change has to happen to fix the championship. I don't think B is perfect, but I think if you get it in, you could tweak it, you could fix it. But I suppose that's right.
I think everybody should just settle. We didn't get a chance for the Tapton Cup. Let's see, can that be a success? You know, where you have the bottom 16 teams. Like, you're speaking to someone here, my first proper year, 1996, we won the All-Ireland B. There was 7,000 or 8,000 at a replay in Carrick and Shannon. So it
was that any good back then? Was that any?
It was, yeah. It gave us momentum. So it did, and it was played in December. But if the bottom 16 finish in the Talton Cup through your National League and you don't get to win your provincial final, go into that and let's give that a trial rather than penalising teams finishing higher up the league. You know, like, we've got to understand there's always been hammerings. There always will be. Like, there was a Donegal quarter-final yesterday, 117 to 2 points.
Yeah.
You know, Kilcar, you know, are we going to change every club championship? You know, or I'm open to going like club championship, senior, intermediate and junior.
Yeah. I think the ladies' structure is illustrated as well, how well that's worked. You know, we saw the likes of Mead coming from intermediate. There's my Mead mention, lads. First time on the pod this week. So, Rory, look, you've been absolutely incredible with your time. I've kept you way over this week. So thanks a million for joining us. Fascinating chat. Really appreciate you joining us this week on the Football Pod. Thanks a million, Rory.
Cheers, Tommy. Thank you.
Welcome back to episode 24 of the Football Pod with Paddy and Andy. That was incredible, Rory Gallagher. I don't think I have much left in Paddy Andrew's Zoom time. He's about to get clocked out here, I think.
I've nothing left to give here.
We do have some... Look, that was fascinating with Rory Gallagher. Like, what a man. Class. Unbelievable. We do have some breaking news in the Football Pod. There's been a massive appointment in Galway. Cian O'Neill has joined. He's just been appointed as a coach alongside Pádraig Joyce. It's the 5th county he's worked with. Cork, Kildare, Mayo, Kerry. Andy, can you talk to us about Cian O'Neill?
Yeah, brilliant guy. A great time for him. He came into us in 2012, and I would say he was a key driver for us attaining the levels we needed to get to, or to know what level we needed to get to. He had huge success with Tip in the hurlers just before that, and came into us and just raised the standard with a couple of others right from the get-go. So he's a huge appointment for Galway, lads. He is very, very confident man. Very confident man, knows his abilities, and knows what he can bring to the table. And I think it's a very shrewd appointment by Pádraig Joyce.
Looking at the raw materials in that Galway squad, and we know that they're not a million miles away. They just really haven't delivered in the last 2 years. Those games against Mayo have been very, very close. Can Cian O'Neill give them some of what they've been lacking or point them in the right direction, as he did for you back in 2012?
Yeah, well, some of the players that haven't played for them, like Killian McDade and them guys that didn't play last year, I think will be looking at that news and thinking, that's a big move, you know. Just what he's done in the game, what he's done in both hurling and football, his education knowledge from a UCC point of view and all his work that he's done. He will fill that room with confidence, and it's a big appointment. It's funny, James will be looking at that. James and himself work together, would have had a good relationship at the time, and I'm sure there's I'm not sure if there'll be an over and back text, but I'm sure there's a right smile for both of them tonight, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a pity James Horn didn't save that Midwest interview for tomorrow. He did a big piece in Midwest today where he spoke about he kind of rubbished I didn't realise there was that many rumours going around of rifts in the backroom team. Maybe that's what you get when you're not in the county, but he rubbished that there was any issues with himself and Kieran MacDonald and James Burke, and he said the three of them are plotting and planning for 2022 already. So yeah, they could have asked him a couple of questions about Cian O'Neill tomorrow maybe. Paddy, you're about to jump in there, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's a massive appointment for Galway. It's you look at how the Connacht final went from this year, the frustration, you could hear it in Pádraig Joyce's interview after the game. Just disappointed that they started so well in the first half and just completely faded in the second half. And Mayo ultimately look very similar to what Mayo did against Dublin in the All-Ireland semi-final. They overran them. They bullied them off the pitch. And someone like Cian O'Neill coming in, look at what he's done, his track record with teams. He has them firing on all cylinders. He has them fit and ready to rock. And he just has experience that maybe Joyce and Divo probably don't have at senior intercounty level. You know, two iconic players for Galway. Divo's obviously won a couple of Sigersons with UCD and things like that. But Cian O'Neill has been around the game for a long time and can bring in that basically a sounding board for the two guys. You know, I think it's a really, really top management ticket. Now, it's done in October. You know, you're probably not going to be starting games for probably 3 or 4 months down the line, so it gives them time to look at that. I think it's a massive appointment for them. I really, really do. And it puts Galway right in the mix now to try and win that title.
It's exciting. It's exciting stuff. Last word, lads, before we go. And Paddy, there's 90 seconds left in the timer, so we can be quick here. But Tommy Walsh retired today. Didn't realise he was 33 years old. I suppose I didn't realise that... 33. You're 30. Are you the same age?
Baby.
32. Okay, sorry about that. Tommy Walsh, I suppose, had two parts to his Kerry career. He had that, you know, exhilarating bursting onto the scene, young footballer of the year. He won All-Ireland in 2009. He had 2 All-Ireland medals. Sorry, he was did he win an under 21 All-Ireland? Yeah, he did. An epic kind of couple of games, under 21s. Yeah. And like, you know, full forward with Donaghy in 09, goes off to the AFL, plays with St Kilda, plays with Sydney Swans, rips the hamstring off the bone. And I feel like that he suffered a lot for that. But he came back to Kerry in 18 and he had big moments. He had big moments against G in 19. I suppose it didn't fully happen for him. I think he probably was frustrated a bit as well, you know, and it's been tough on him.
I don't think he probably admitted himself, and like I haven't seen his statement today, he probably never got back to the levels of the early part of his career, and that's just a horrific injury that you get when you're down in Australia. And just being away from the game for so many years. We see Conor McKenna probably struggling to adapt and get back to the levels he could be at prior to going to Australia. He said it himself last week. But I played in that game. I was one cornerback marking the Gooch. I think Dennis Bastick was fullback marking Declan O'Sullivan, and Tommy Walsh was out. I think Brian Cullen was marking Tommy Walsh or Paul Galvin. But that was a phenomenal Kerry team.
Yeah.
That team of the Naughties, along with Tyrone, were the 2 top teams. I think Tyrone won 3 and Kerry won 4 of them, and Cork were very strong at that time as well. But Tommy Walsh was a freak at the time. And look, if he never went to Australia, could he have been, along with Donaghy and Gooch, to the forefront of Kerry, maybe putting a halt to our evolution of Mayo and Donegal coming along in the next decade? But he had a spectacular start to his career. He's given it goes since he got back, and probably the injuries just never let him get back to the peak that he was at when he was 19, 20 years of age. But like Rory Gallagher touched on it there, myself and Andy touched on it as well. When you get to a certain age and a certain level and certain miles on the clock, you just can't really do the things you used to be able to do. And it's a very difficult thing for any player, particularly at an elite level and particularly at an inter-county level, not to be able to reach those heights anymore. You know, that's mentally a really, really difficult thing to do. So for Tommy, I wish him all the best. Like say, I had the fortune of playing against him a couple of times throughout my career, and I know Andy's the same as well. Total servant to Kerry GAA, and probably the best days of what we see from Kerry was in that phenomenal All Ireland in 2009, where he came out of nowhere and blitzed everyone to win it. And he's well deserved Young Player of the Year.
Just on Tommy, I think Rory probably covered what happened to Tommy Walsh there as well.
Yeah.
A hamstring injury, of course, definitely took a half yard. But before he went in 08 and 09, he was kicking, and you were kicking in over the 6, and you were getting it into Donny. And remember, Donny came on in 04. I think Kerry went up, nearly lost to Longford. Donny came on in 04, changed the game. They used that tactic for 5 or 6 years, and Tommy Walsh came in at that moment. Now, when he went, it went completely defensive football.
Yeah.
When he came back then, it was nearly a hybrid between both. It wasn't that big long kick because you just put a sweeper in, or it wasn't just, so it became a bit of a running stroke bouncer into your hands. Now it's come into the mark. So he probably got caught in that little transition of play as well, in terms of when he came back, the game didn't suit him as much as before he left. But what a career, lads. Jeez.
Unbelievable.
All-Ireland winner, underage senior level, played in finals before he left. Out to Australia, came back in, played with Kerry again. Great career.
The son of a Kerry legend as well, which can never be easy, I suppose, when there's medals rattling around in the pocket at home.
Pretty decent run.
And to be fair to him, Tommy Walsh, and I think it's in keeping with his character, didn't actually release a retirement statement today. It was Jack O'Connor that released the news. He actually broke it. So Tommy's actually, I think, he's pretty quiet. I think we've had him on off the ball maybe once over the last while. So I look forward to trying to get him on the show over the next wee while and trying to get him
when
on.
You're 32, 33 there. We've talked about new manager comes in. You always know you're either, I'm really committed to this. He might chop me. You're always kind of in that. Me and Paddy have been caught there at times. And it's not an easy place to be.
Never sit down with them 100%.
Yeah. What a career, though. Well done.
Yeah, unbelievable. Folks, thanks very much for listening in this week to episode 24 of the Football Pod. And I would like to thank Andy Moore for taking time out of his busy schedule, and for Paddy Andrews for turning up this week and for staying awake throughout it.
He done well. The kid done well.
You were both great lads. And a huge thanks to our guest Rory Gallagher as well this week. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
God, that man loves football. It was just infectious. It was coming through the screen. So I hope you all enjoyed it at home. Do hit subscribe. We will be back with you next week. We will know what the crack is with Congress, and we will have another big interview lined up that I'll tell you about on the Football Pod Instagram or Twitter account over the next couple of days. Thanks very much, folks. Bye-bye.
Good night, gents. Bye-bye.
Thanks, lads.